Again, thank you very much for being with us, and it's yours, Alexandra. Thank you.
Thank you, Goli, for this introduction, and thank you, IAF, for having me. I think the current circumstances, although they might be extremely challenging and quite negative to the point of being deadly, we still have the silver lining that we can feel and sense and be in touch with, and that offers us such opportunities to come together and experience these things from different parts of the world. And I think we might have never thought of actually going that much digital beforehand, but then this is an opportunity for us all to get together. So as Goli said, today's workshop is going to be about creativity. And creativity is something that we cannot live without. Otherwise, everything would be black and white, perhaps not even white, just black. And it would be very boring to live in the world without creativity. So for today's session, we're going to explore a few exercises, and these exercises are going to be aligned with your individual goals. Because in creativity, there's a lot about us as individuals. And a bit more about me. So my experience was with the PERSED, which is a training, coaching, and consultancy enterprise for personal education and 21st century learning. And creativity and other 21st century skills are at the core of what we do. But before we start and experience and experiment with creativity, I want us to kickstart the session with a bit of igniter. I don't know about you, but Turkey time zone, Beirut time zone, and Eastern European time zone is around lunchtime. And perhaps now, before or after, we might be a bit tired. So what we're going to do is that we're going to stand up. I know it might be challenging to stand up when we're doing things on Zoom, but trust me, we're going to enjoy it. So we're going to stand up. And this is an igniter that I've tried a while ago, and I think it's very, very efficient, especially when we have like, I don't know, 25 Zoom sessions per day. So what we're going to do is that we're going to stand and we're going to use our hands just beneath you. And your palms have to be facing with the sky. And we're going to go up and breathe in. And then when your hands reach your shoulder level, you're going to switch them. Your palms are going to be turned towards the floor. And you're going to exhale. Let's try that again. Inhale. And exhale. Feel like if there's something that you're pushing towards the floor, sort of an imaginary box. We're thinking outside the box now, but we're using the box to help us. So now you're lifting the box. And while as you exhale, you're pushing the box downwards. Okay, so as we regulated our breathing a bit, I want you to stand with your legs a bit far from each other, like a samurai position. You know, we're going to war. We're going to war against COVID and all the crisis that we might suffer from. And we're going to take our hands that are full of energy now and imagine that we're holding a samurai sword in front of us. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to lift the imaginary sword upwards as if we are taking it behind our back, behind our right shoulder. And we are going to slash the screen with a scream and say, ha! Okay, let's try that again with a bit of noise. So this time, exceptionally, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself so that we can all feel the energy of the samurai soldiers that we are all over the world. And on 1, 3, get ready, the samurai sword. 2, 1, ha! Yes, nice, okay. We can go back to our seats now. I hope you feel a bit energized. We cannot do creativity without being energized.
This is energizing.
It is. It feels like there's something super huge, super important going to happen. And I love that feeling that we get from the samurai sword. It's a bit of cultural appropriation, but it's efficient. It's efficient. Okay, so as I told you, Perced is a training, coaching, consultancy enterprise, and the work that we do is all about 21st century skills, and creativity is a big, big, big part of it. And I think now with the current crisis that we had, we realized that we need creativity more than ever before. Whenever there's a problem, we need to find solutions. Whenever there's an obstacle, we need to find a way. And creativity is what is going to allow us to find this way to go away from the crisis, away from the problem, away from the obstacle, and find new things to do and new ways to explore our practice. So that is what creativity in times of crisis is about. And because it's in my time zones and perhaps in some of your time zones, it's lunchtime, we are going to share with you the menu for today. So it's going to be a 3-course menu with an entry about how important confidence is and as an hors d'oeuvre. Then we are going to dig deeper into the main course, and we're going to have 6 parts in the main course. It's a very heavy course, but in the same time, it's going to be very light. And on the side of this main course, we're going to have 3 elements, 3 verbs that we're going to explore, which is think, do, and share after we explore these 6 exercises. And we will finish up with a bit of dessert because, of course, there's no decent lunch that finishes without a bit of dessert. So are you ready to start? Wherever you're from, whatever you're feeling, I hope you have all that energy within you, because I certainly do. Excellent. So why are we doing this? Why is it creativity important for us? Why is it something that we need? And why is it something that we need in facilitation? As you know, facilitation is a moment that we share with others. So it's not just a communication of information, it's an experience. And if we want to create an experience that is really worth sharing and worth having, we need to uncover certain things. We need to uncover unearth, I love that verb, unearth certain ideas and create new connections with people, connections between people, so between the facilitator and the people who are participating in this, connections in between the individuals of that experience, and connections between all the different ideas that we need and that we want to explore, because it's in this coming together of different dots that we can actually create a new image. I saw creativity increases engagement, absolutely, because we feel much more engaged when these neurons are sparkling in new and creative ways. And because whenever there's an old that we feel became old, like this paradigm that was before COVID-19, it's time to change and shift the paradigms and transform the way we do things. And I want to start it with this hors d'oeuvre I told you about, and it's a marvelous quote from Salvador Dali. So every morning upon awakening, I experience a supreme pleasure, that of being Salvador Dali. And I ask myself, wonderstruck, what prodigious thing will he do today, this Salvador Dali? And that speaks of something that is crucial to creativity, which is confidence. We cannot be creative. We cannot experience this freedom of thinking if we don't believe that we have the capacity to create new things and to innovate and to come up with something new and different and unique and personal. So I want you to take this moment and sort of sink in this intention. Look at this white screen and focus on it and ask yourself, what prodigious thing are you going to do today? Just take this one moment, feel it, let it sink in. And now it's time for us to start with the first creativity exercise. So it's a mountain, but it's not really a mountain because it's a representation of something else, which is storytelling. And the first exercise that we are going to explore today, one thing. So we're going to go, as I said, through a series of 6 exercises, And then we are going to have the time to reflect upon them and then select one of those exercises to actually practice them, because it's going to be a workshop. And so we're going to do things. And so now we're just going to experience all these different possible exercises that can help us improve our practice. And then we are going to have an application over it. So if you feel like taking notes of what these are, of the main ideas, feel free to do that. Back to the first exercise. So a crisis story in 7 minutes. So we're living in a crisis. Usually we were used to facilitating things offline. We'd have people in front of us, not just that very tiny little webcam through which we have a view over the entire world. And so the relationship is different, the engagement is different, the atmosphere is different, and it sort of is unsettling for us to experience all these changes. And there's a crisis outside, people might not have the same level of focus. So there's a million different problems that we could be facing. But why is this important? Because we are going to take that and we are going to apply the dramatic structure of storytelling. So usually when there's a story that we're trying to tell, we start with one point, which is the beginning. We set the framework. What is happening? What's the date? What's the time? What's the space? Is it a country? Is it the unknown land of the web? Is it the comfort of your own home, or perhaps the discomfort of your home or that of your participants? So whatever it is, it has to start with a framework, with an atmosphere, with an ambiance to it. And then we go on and start to build up the narrative where we have issues and problems, stacking and getting bigger and bigger and more intense and more problematic until we reach the highest point of the mountain, which is the climax. And this is where things are at their worst. Nothing can go worse starting this point. And this is why afterwards we start to have sort of resolution. The complexities that we are suffering from start to unravel. And bit by bit, solution after solution, we reach an ending and we finish with a conclusion that I hope would be positive. You can end it on a negative note, but that's completely not the objective of what we're doing. We want to finish on a positive note. And so this is the dramatic structure that we are going to follow. So if there's a problem, whatever that problem is for you, because we all have different experiences, although they are united in the context of this global crisis, but we all have different experiences. So whatever problem we are suffering from, we start with it. And over the 7 minutes that follow it, we are going to go through this entire process without any planning. So some authors, some writers, they'd rather create a plan, an outline, they know exactly what they're headed. But in this case, we don't know where it's headed. We're just going to create it with the flow that comes with it. And why 7 minutes? Because if we're going to do that in 1 or 2 minutes, that's not going to be enough to really go in the depth of the story, to experiment with the worsening of the events and then the unfolding and the unraveling of complexities. And we're not going to do it for half an hour, because then the purpose is not to write a book, but to find a solution to a problem. So the first exercise is tell the story of a crisis unfolding, becoming more complex and unraveling in 7 minutes. So that's exercise number 1. Exercise number 2, it has a storytelling component to it, but it's different. I'm not sure if you recognize, I'm just going to ask you, if you see feet and you see them walking, what is the first expression that comes to your mind? Share it in the chat box. Is there something, an idea, an expression that comes to your mind when you see feet and you see walking path, beach? Oh yes, that would be lovely at the present moment. A journey, yes, a journey. Going forward, past, walking to destination, but whose journey is it? A trail. Yes, we are leaving a trail, but before, change ours, perhaps not ours, perhaps it's somebody else's. Perhaps it's somebody else's. Imprint on path, mine trail. Is it mine? Is it somebody else's? It sounds like mile. It's mine, mile, a mile in somebody else's shoes. We're walking a mile in somebody else's shoes. Environment, very important environment footprint, very important. And it certainly did sort of, we feel now how important it is to leave a good environmental footprint. But in this case, it's walking a mile in their shoes. So whose shoes are we talking about? We're talking about the shoes of the participants in our workshops. So the people who are attending, the people who are experiencing this with us. They could be students, they could be professionals, whoever they are. And if we want to be creative enough to engage them, because initially somebody said at the beginning, creativity means engagement, and I cannot agree more on the importance of engagement. So if you want to engage them creatively, we need to understand who they are, what they need, what they want, what they feel. And we need to walk a mile in their shoes. And so what will happen in this exercise is we're going to go through their day. So we're going to wake up in the morning, we're going to open our eyes, we're them. We are our workshop participants. What's the first thing that they do? And don't think about they, think about just one person. One person who is sort of the epitome of your workshop participant. The first thing that he or she does in the morning, waking up, opening their eyes, going out of bed. Are they tired? Are they energized? Are they sad? Are they happy? Are they stressed? What happens next? If they want to go to work, do they go outside? Are they inside their homes? Are they alone? And when they go on your workshop, what time is it during the day? What are they doing? What should they be doing at this time? How are they feeling? And so we go through their day, and every single detail matters. So imagine the rooms, imagine the house. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be true. It's not real. It's in your head. But nonetheless, it's real because this is how you feel from their perspective. And you understand things from their perspective, how they feel, what they see, their actions, their habits, their worries, their need for engagement, how they express that. And once this happens, once we really decide to walk a mile in their shoes, we can craft an experience that is much better aligned with what they want, with who they are, that is much better balanced. Because if you realize that they have 27 million Zoom calls during one day, then perhaps this one Zoom call needs to be different, needs to create a completely different experience so that they can span out of their day-to-day life, out of the boring Zoom to Zoom experience and into something else, into a new different world. Perhaps it's early in the morning and we need to wake up. Perhaps it's in times of crisis and we need to make them relaxed and feel more, feel calmer and feel more serene about the things that they do. So whatever it is they need, once we cater our experience, once we cater our facilitated journey to theirs, their sort of alignment of things, an alignment of thoughts, alignment of feelings, of emotions, of environments. And this completely transforms the engagement that you can have with your participants. You are providing them with information, with value, but you're also crafting an experience that they will enjoy, because this is how we can retain even more the things that are important to us. Third exercise. So the first one was a crisis story in 7 minutes. The second one was a mile in their shoes. What is this one? What is this one? So it's sort of upside down. But it's not about you being upside down. It's not you just like putting your hands and I don't know if any one of you, can you do that? Is there anyone who can do that? I can't, I certainly can't. Change the perspective, yes, change the perspective. But how can we change the perspective? By reverse engineering the process. So what happens when we have a problem, more often than not, we think, okay, how can I solve this problem? And then we go on with ideas and we try to find solutions and so on and so forth. But it doesn't cut it, because we have these sort of predetermined paths from problem to solution, and we sort of narrow down the path towards something that we're used to. It's traditional, but we cannot face the non-traditional with a traditional way of thinking. So have fun. Yes, have fun. We're going to have fun. And how are we going to have fun? By thinking not of the solutions, but of the things that can make it go worse. So it's like fun, but a dystopian kind of fun. So if you have a problem, don't think, how can I solve it? Think, how can I make it go worse? How can I make it 10 times worse? So if participants are not joining, so how can I make them feel so repulsed of this experience that they would never want to come again? What can I do to push them away? If they're coming but they're not engaged, okay, how can I make them feel so bored that, again, they would never want to come again? And once you do that, you can come up with these crazy ideas, and automatically it will push you to think in a completely different way. As you said, in a completely new perspective. And there are things that you've never thought of and that you start thinking about. So first is think of the challenges, make them go worse, more dangerous, more complex, more difficult, list everything that can make it be 10 times worse. And then once you have that list, transform that into its opposite. So for instance, if the problem is that they're not engaged and I want them to feel bored, then how can I make them feel even more bored? I'm going to make a lecture. I'm going to make a university lecture that starts with a book and finishes with a book. No engagement, no interactions, no questions, no energizers, no nothing. And when you sort of reverse it, you see, oh, then perhaps it doesn't need to be based on a book. Perhaps it can be a story or an experience. No energizers. I definitely need to add energizers. No conversation because I'm the one only talking. Perhaps I need to activate the chat or do something else. So when you think of the things that can go worse, there are no boundaries. There are no limitations. There are no beaten paths. You're just going from scratch. And then you flip it and you get the solutions that you might need. So that was the reverse brainstorming. A small recap, a crisis story in 7 minutes. Then we have a mile in their shoes and reversed brainstorming. Moving on to the fourth one. It has a lot to do with puzzles. Do you like puzzles? Who likes puzzles? Say I. Well, you cannot say I, but you can share it in the chat box. You like puzzles? Yes, nice. I see a lot of eyes. Well, perhaps not eyes, but the letter I. Yes, I love puzzles as well. And the idea of puzzles is that you have these interlinked pieces. And it's amazing how you can go from broken pieces, shattered pieces, into this beautiful, beautiful image. Unfortunately, we're not going to do puzzles now, but we're going to do something similar to it. And I call it forced connections. They might not be forced, but they're connections nonetheless. And what we're going to do now is, well, perhaps not now, later, but this is the cue, is if you have a paper or one big paper that you can cut it into small pieces, or Post-its, who doesn't like Post-its? And then bring as many as you can get. My estimate is around between 15 and 30 of them, and create 3 separate piles. So the first pile will have 5 to 10 Post-its and or small pieces of papers. The second pile would also have the same number, and the third pile the same number, and they should be separate from one another. What will happen with the first pile? We're going to try to find the words that are related to the problem that we are suffering from. So if we are practicing facilitation and we are experimenting with facilitation online, and we want to find solutions to the problems that we're facing, we need to we need to understand what the problem is. And so in the first pile, we're going to write down words that are related to the problem. Could be lack of engagement, could be time zones, could be a lot of things. So it really depends on you and your practice. And the idea behind this workshop is for it to be highly personalized for you. So the first pile is about problems. The second pile is about the tools that you can use. Zoom, it could be Kahoot, it could be Slack channel, it could be a mind mapping software that is available online. So all the tools that you usually use or that potentially you could use in a collaborative environment. Don't think about how you can use them, just put in the name of the tool that you know or that you're curious to know more about. Third pile, words that are related to your ideas or solutions. So what are the things that you feel like you want to do with your participants? What is your ultimate goal? What is the best outcome that can come out of this experience? So think of all the positive things. So no more negative stuff, no more practical stuff, just thinking about the ultimate experience that you are creating. What will happen next is that once you have these three piles and make sure that they're separate, you are going to fold them one by one so that you don't know what's inside of them. And you're going to scramble them like scrambled eggs, a lot of food today. And what will happen next is that you're going to take one word from each pile. Remember, they are folded. You don't know what the word is. And you're going to open them. And you are going to try to find connections between these three words. So we have one word about a problem, one word about a tool, and one word or a few words about the ideal outcome. And in this case, it's just like puzzle, because we're bringing together different elements that perhaps before we might have never thought they could come together. And this is where new stuff come up. And this is where, through the power of connections, we can create different experiences and create new things. And there is no right or wrong way to do that. It really depends on how you mix and match. And if the first one is something that you feel, oh, I should definitely do that, then go ahead and do that. If you're not so sure and you think, oh, perhaps I can find something else, you pick another paper from the first pile, another from the second, and then from the third, and then you try to find new connections. And you can do that for everything, not just your practice. You can do that for your personal life. You can do that for your professional, for your work. It can help you in all sorts of contexts, so not just facilitation. And it could also be something that you could do with your participants to unravel their ability to connect the dots and to think creatively and innovatively. So that was the fourth one, forced connections. And now we move on to, this is one of my absolute favorites. Sorry, I'm biased. I shouldn't be biased, but I am. And I don't know, can you guess what it is? Keywords. So we have arrows, and the arrows, are they going in the same direction? Crossroads, direction. Directions, nice, yes. Flow, it certainly has a flow of its own. Streets, streets of thoughts, yes, why not? Directions. Selections, close enough. Selections, what are we selecting? Crossroads, decisions. Perspectives, again, perspectives. Structure, perhaps lack of structure. Sailing with the winds, I love that, sailing with the winds. Choices, nice. Somehow, swinging thoughts, I feel like dancing now. So a lot of these words can be largely connected to it. Crossroads. And there's this one keyword, I love this word, which is called divergent. Not the movie. Opportunity, it definitely can create new opportunities at the crossroads and beyond crossroads. And divergent thinking is very, very powerful. What is divergent thinking? It's the ability to think of something, but from different perspectives. So you don't see it as it is, you see it as everything it could be. So you go outwards, you don't go inwards. In design thinking, we have these series of divergent and convergent thinking. This is purely divergent, and it's a very good exercise, not necessarily for the facilitation, but it can surely unravel certain abilities to think more creatively. And in the exercise that we're going to do afterwards, we're going to look around us and pick one object, and it could be any object, and try not to think about it. And then we're going to take our cell phone and put a timer on 1 minute. Once you set the timer and you launch it on 1 minute, you pick the first object that you see and you try to find as many alternative uses as possible to that object without the initial use of this object. So for instance, if I'm having this coaster, I'm going to try to find as many alternative uses for that coaster as possible. If we're going to follow this map, rounded coaster, what are other things that can be? Paper pin. Ah, yes, paper pin. Perhaps not a paper pin, but an actual pin that you can put on your clothes. What else? Before I unravel mine, what do you think could be something? What could you think the coaster could be? A wheel, absolutely. A wheel for a tiny bicycle. A wedge covered by coffee, yes, for it not to go too cold. Door stopper, absolutely. Steering wheel, yes. A pizza cutter, if it's sharp enough, yes, absolutely. I love these. Absolutely, you guys are extremely creative. Pendant, yes. A template, absolutely. Frisbee, absolutely. Writing pad for post-it, yes. Global, what do you mean by global? Ah, the globe. Eye patch, absolutely. Aye, the pirate. That would be a fun way of doing a pirate night. A seat, yes, 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 nice. Fly it out the window behind you. Well, if you're angry enough, why not? Bookmark, yes. It could be, it could work both. So for the coffee or the drink that you're having as you're reading and when you finish your reading. Previous screen, this one, you mean? A plate, yes, it would be a very tiny plate. So if you're on a diet and you don't want to eat much, it would definitely work for the small amount of food that you want to limit it to. So we have a rounded coaster. It could be a lot of things. It could be a necklace. It could be a mini painting that you can put on a wall. It could be a fan if it's too hot and now we're close to the summer. You can put it on your head and try to practice walking straight. I tried it, doesn't work. You can create earrings, but they would be very big, very heavy, but very creative as well. Bicycle, you said it. You can put it on a hat and sort of have a decor on it. You can offer it as a medal. So let's say there's a competition and you want to offer something, and the medal would be the rounded coaster itself. So many different things. The idea is to try to come up with as many alternative uses in under 1 minute, and it's challenging. But it also puts you in a completely different mood because you have all these ideas that are jumping around. And what you're going to do if you choose this exercise afterwards, you're going to write down how many alternative uses you found in this 1 minute. And definitely you shouldn't use the rounded coaster. And you can do that on a frequent basis. So not just today, you can do that next week, the week after that, and perhaps see how it becomes easier to think of alternative uses. The creativity is like a muscle. So the more you use it, it's like going to the gym, but a gym for the mind, for the creativity. And the more you use it, the more it grows, the more powerful you become from a creative perspective. And so we have crisis story in 7 minutes. We have a mind in their shoes. We have reverse brainstorming. We have divergent thinking. We have, what else do we have? Can you help me? What was the third one? Reverse brainstorming.
Forced connections.
Forced connections, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Disconnected dots. So the last one is something that we can use it now, but also in at other times. I call it circle your problem. Initially, when I did this with some entrepreneurs who were fighting COVID-19 and trying to come up with a lot of ideas to fight COVID-19, we called it the circle of anti-corona. But to make it more generic and not just corona related, I sort of rebranded for circle your problem. And the idea is to transform the circle, to imagine that your entire problem, it could be this one circle, this virus. And we need to find other ways of giving life to that circle that is inhabited by the virus. So what we'll do is that with A4 paper, will draw circles, and they have to be separated from one another. They shouldn't be close to one another. It could be a series of 4 circles, 4 lines and 4 columns and 4 lines, or 4 lines and 3 columns. It depends on how you organize them. The more the merrier, and the more you draw circles, the more you experience a divergent thinking as well. And so think of those circles as your virus. The initial one is the virus, but we don't want to stay in that circle. We want to unleash our imagination to try to imagine other things that this circle could be. We're not going to do this exercise because the previous one sort of anchored the rounded shape in it, but we can draw a sun and imagine that we're at the beach and there's a sun and we're enjoying it. It could be a turtle walking in the sand. It could be a target, and we have this targeted focus on it. And we can come up with as many ideas to inhabit the circle. It could be the yin and yang. It could be a coffee, a black coffee, or however you want your coffee, or tea cup, and you see it from above. It could be the rounded coaster that we have experienced earlier. So it could be so many things in the same time. So these were the exercises. There are not too many, but they're also not, there's not enough creativity exercises that we can do. And this is when we are going to explore the side dishes of today, which is the think, do, and share. The first thing that we're going to do is think about a problem that you are facing as a facilitator, something that annoys you, something that you're suffering from, something that COVID-19 has forced you into, and you're not comfortable with that paradigm. You're not comfortable with how things are now. So I want you to think about that problem, and if you feel comfortable, share it in the chat box. So perhaps others also who might be experiencing the same issue would also feel tempted to explore it and solutions to it. So think of a problem that you have, and feel free to share it in the chat box. So a problem that you are suffering from, that you want to see solved, any kind of problem, loss of personal connections. I couldn't agree more. Yes. Companies do not invest in workshops, coachings from external in these days. Yes, they either do it internally or they don't do it at all, which is not necessarily the best way of doing things, because facilitation is an art, and you know best about how important it is. A lack of engagement, yes, I agree. So think of that for a second, and then what we're going to do for the next 5 minutes. Economic recession, a very, very big problem that we are suffering from. So I want you to think of that problem, and for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to add some music, because it's much more enjoyable to do an exercise with music, right? And during those 5 minutes, you're going to pick one exercise. So either story in 7 minutes, a mile in their shoes, reverse brainstorming, false connections, divergent thinking, circle your problem. Pick one. So the story in 7 minutes, exceptional, will have to be in 5 minutes, but it's still going to be an interesting experience to have. And for the next 5 minutes, dive into it, and then we're going to come back after your individual experiments and after the music, and we're going to share these experiences, these experiments, these ideas that might have sparked, and perhaps we can inspire each other and inspire ourselves to do something different about the things that we are used to. So I'm going to add some music for our ears, perhaps some summer jazz music. So some summer jazz music, the flow, and 5 minutes. Feel free to focus. I'm not going to talk much, perhaps a bit. I know I'm going to force you to lose focus sometimes, but perhaps a few guidelines here and there. So 5 minutes, enjoy it, focus, come up with marvelous ideas. to choose a problem and use a solution. So you're going to choose a problem and one of these creativity exercise, and you're going to dive deep into that creativity exercise and then see what solution can come up. So don't focus on the solution, focus on the process. So one strategy, one approach, and then we can see what will happen. So one problem, one process, it could be any one of them. If you're done with one, you might want to explore another one in the same time or afterwards. One more minute. Final one, no pressure. Anyone feels like not ready, or do you think we can go on and share some of our own personal plates for the lunch today? To see what you cooked in 5 minutes. Two more minutes, fair enough. If you already have some sort of a breakthrough idea or something, feel free to share it in the chat box. This way we can bounce off it for the discussion. So as I said, if you already have these breakthrough ideas or you feel you have something to share from your cooking, then please do so via the chat box. This way we can kickstart the conversation immediately afterwards. Okay. So I think time's up. And now is after we have done, so done is the second side dish for our main course, and now we have the third side dish of the main course, which is sharing. And I want to hear from you either via the chat box or by unmuting yourselves. and sharing with us the experience. Tell us what it is, what was the exercise that you have explored, that you have tried, that you have tested, and what perhaps new ideas sort of emerged. Or if you tried the divergent thinking one, perhaps not what new ideas, but how many results, how many answers you got. From Özge, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right. Özge, apologies.
Özge.
Özge.
Yeah.
So apologies if I mistaken the name. So to improve loss of personal connections, we can ask them to imagine where they would prefer to be and ask them to use that place as a virtual background. That would be amazing. People enjoy exploring with a lot of virtual backgrounds. And it would be nice to feel that kind of immersion. I think it's a very good connection. Was it forced connections?
No, in fact, it was not the forced connections, but from divergent thinking I came up.
Divergent thinking. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
The power of divergent thinking.
Yeah.
What else? I'm curious to know what breakthroughs you came up with. You can unmute yourself as well. It's a free space for dialogue, for exchange. A mile in their shoes, an HMR manager, 1,000 mails in his box need to be replied urgently. Staff who are anxious if they lose their jobs. And how is this experience and experiment drove you to an ending that is positive and that is different?
Actually, this is the situation that I'm living in. It is impossible to reach HR managers, and you know, they have changed all of their training plans, and they are trying to make a new plan. And I thought that a mile in their shoes can help me a lot to understand them better and to provide them what they really need in this situation.
And this is beautiful. Why? Because it gets us to be more empathetic and to create connection with people. Because once we do that, then we can create a space of synergy. Once we understand where the other person comes from, the way we communicate with them, it can completely transform one person's day. So instead of forcing things down somebody's throat, by being more positive, by having this extra dose of energy in somebody's day, we can transform our day, their day, and our interaction. So it's not a linear model of growth and happiness and joy. It's exponential in a way if we want to replicate the coronavirus model. What else? Don't hesitate, don't be shy. We're all here together.
Yeah.
We're in this together. Yes.
Yeah, so for me, reverse brainstorming was quite interesting to go through because I felt we always plan for better things and what can be done better. But this was a reverse brainstorming. I think at this point of time during COVID times, the internet problems that can happen, the people barging in, and I'm thinking more of if we are performing, so we are into the field of applied theater, Rangbhumi, and if we are creating a performance for a corporate where there are 200 to 1,000 people who are watching it, so what can go worse? So that I think it is helping me to understand what I need to be cautious of.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's also very good for risk mitigation. So whenever we want to wear the black hat and see how things are going to worse, it's very good for project management planning as well. What things can go worse, and then we try to find a solution for it. And when we associate these different experiences that we have with creativity, we can come up with solutions or with risk mitigation in a completely different and more creative and more efficient way.
Yeah.
Yes, mitigation and contingency, absolutely. It is out of the box. It is out of the box. Perhaps it's not out of the box as much as it is about shaking the box, because you're using the same elements of the experience. We're still talking about the problem, but we're thinking about it differently. So if this is the box, we're just reversing it, just shaking the things inside of the box. So I think, I hope that you enjoyed the session. If you have questions and answers, feel free to prepare them. But before we talk about the questions and answers, I have the dessert, because nothing can be done without a dessert, of course. And I want to share something with you. It's something that I've been working on at Perced for some time now. It's going to be launched next week to the public. But I thought, hey, because we're having this interaction and I need a dessert. We cannot finish the lunch without a dessert. It's a 130 plus page compilation. It's 100 exercises, igniters, more than 100 igniters, exercises, energizers for enhanced cognition, for enhanced sensory motor experience, and for enhanced social connection that we can use in our experiences as facilitators of meetings, events, webinars, design thinking workshops, whatever they are. And I just wanted to share with you the link. You can submit your message, your email if you're interested, and then immediately I'll send it back to you free of charge. Because I really want us to ignite our experience of facilitation. We have so much power in the thing that we do. And if we can make the experiences that we run a bit more lively, a bit more, a bit different, then why not do it? So thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have feedback, questions, comments, anything, feel free to reach out. I'm going to drop the email in the chat box as well as the link. I'm going to stop sharing now. If you have questions, then I think it's a good moment to ask it. We still have maybe 4 minutes left or 5 minutes left before we are kicked out of the session. So this is the link. So instead of sending your emails in the chat box, otherwise it will be too overwhelming for us, I just send in a link to everyone.
Sorry, Alexandra, you send it privately. Can you send it to everyone, please?
Done.
Yes,
Yes,
great.
yes. You are on the top of my list, so it automatically was sent to you. What can I do? So just sent a link. And if you have any questions, I am sharing with you the email info@perceptblog.com. So yes, the link to receive the guidebook, the email for questions, comments, feedback. I'd love to hear the feedback from you. And any questions? Wow, was it that clear?
I have a question, Alexandra.
Yes.
Can you share maybe just a couple of, best, what are the best uses of some of these tools? In your experience, for example, suppose when people are getting laid off, for instance, and that's a crisis that someone is grappling with, which of these tools, if at all, if there are some of these tools that lend themselves better to certain kind of situations, a certain kind of problems, anything that comes to you top of the mind based on your experience?
Yes, if they're laid off, then there's a problem that it's not about a mind in their shoes because it's their own shoes. So that would not work very well in this case. It's not about divergent thinking as much because divergent thinking is like different ways, different strategies. It's about an object. Here it's about them. I definitely feel an alignment with forced connections. So if they have these 3 piles, they think about the problem that they have, the problems that are connected to being laid off. And then they think about their talents, their skills, about what they can do well and what they can do very well and that they can use outside of the framework of the traditional job that they had previously. And then they think of all the tools that are available to them, the platforms that they can use, whether it's social media, or it could be another platform, because if they're not that into the social media aspect, it could be the individuals or the people to whom they can connect. And then they use these 3 in order to create forced connections between them and try to find new opportunities. So I think that would be very relevant in this case to people who have suffered from that particular problem. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you. And the whole session, absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much, Alexandra.
I hope you enjoy. I enjoyed it personally. I
Thank
loved
you.
it.
Thoroughly.
Chris.
Thoroughly.
Thanks a lot.
100%. Yeah. Absolutely fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question?
Yeah,
I
Alexandra.
love it.
Right.
Okay,
Hello.
this is reverse, Chandra. This is reverse engineered
Yep,
applied
we have-
to the paper. Thank you very much.
Hello. Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, of course.
Hello. Yeah.
Thank you. We have
Yeah, my name
time
is
for
Salman.
only one question. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I'll quickly go ahead. Would you like to comment what is the difference between this creativity and design thinking?
So
What is the
design
difference
thinking is
between
a structure.
creativity and design thinking?
Yes. So design thinking is a structure. So it's a 5-step process where we start with empathy, we define the problem, we come up with as many ideas as possible. This is where we apply divergent thinking. Then we create a prototype, we test it, and there's the entire process of iteration. So it's a very structured approach. Creativity is not a structured approach as much as it is a state of being, a way of thinking. We use creativity in the framework of design thinking, and throughout the design thinking process to be creativity much more I think, and design thinking process in one way that we can use creativity to come up with an outcome and an idea.
Thank you. Wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All
My
right.
pleasure.
Thank you, Alexandra, for high energy, for informative session. I think that we all enjoy it. Thank you very much again. And
Goli, you're muted.
sorry, do you have me? All right. Sorry, it seems that I'm muting. Okay. So now if you can hear me, there's also in the chat a link to our Google Doc, which can you use to give your feedbacks and comments about the festivals. And for the next sessions, we have adaptability IQ that is going to be in the same room, but you can exit and enter again in 15 minutes. And also we have the briefing, the useful tool. I hope that you enjoy your sessions so far, and we're hoping to see you also during the closing sessions. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good time. Thank you again, Alexandra.
I can simply put you in the waiting room, by the way, so that you don't have to exit, and we'll see you in 15 minutes again. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for coming.